Hey friends, it's Lady Ambrosia. I'm just sitting in my car drinking my Dunkin' Donuts coffee, getting ready to head into the salon. So, today I want to talk about the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, the Sabbat of Ostara, and just a conversation that I had with a sister witch of mine. So we were talking about the Sabbat and kind of what we were both doing for it and what it means to us and what it looks like to us and how we express it and how we experience it. And, she mentioned that Ostara is not really a Sabbat that she really resonates deeply with, that it's not one of the holidays that she's as drawn to, I guess would be a good word for it. And, I understand that and I respect that because there's definitely, there was a time in my life where I didn't really connect to parts of the Wheel of the Year as much as others. And I think that that's totally fine and that's okay. And that not every, you don't have to necessarily have this deep reverence connection to necessarily every holiday. That sounds kind of bad to say, but if you don't connect, you don't connect, and that's okay. And no one really is here necessarily to tell you that you have to celebrate or don't have to celebrate. If it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. Maybe you do something as simple as just light a candle to acknowledge the turning of the wheel, or maybe you don't even do that, and that's okay too. It really, I'm not for spiritual gatekeeping. I'm not for people telling people how they have to practice, what they have to believe in, any of that. That's not what I'm into at all. So anyway, spring equinox, Ostara vibes. So she was saying basically that she feels like she's just not really into the whole pastel flower maiden energy that she feels like Ostara comes with. And I can see that. I definitely feel like Ostara does have sort of those pastel vibes of, bunny rabbits and colored eggs, but I feel like some of that also has to do with just how our Western culture has been so heavily influenced by, I'm going to say, the secular version of Easter, because that's, a lot of people are celebrating it in a very secular way, where they're just doing Easter egg hunts or doing Easter baskets and celebrating the Easter Bunny and taking little kids to go get their pictures taken with the Easter Bunny and, maybe having a meal, maybe not, and just hanging out and spending time with family. I mean, there's definitely plenty of Christians who celebrate Easter and celebrating the rebirth of their God, but I think a lot of people here in America, it's just such a secular holiday that definitely, without a question of a doubt, has pagan roots. And we know that. So I can see kind of the whole pastel spring rabbit vibes of the flower maiden necessarily might not resonating with her or connecting with her, especially because, this is a time of year where we do kind of stop and take a pause for the aspect of the maiden, the aspect of the goddess of the maiden, I guess I should say. So I understand that, but I also think that, like, Ostara also has some darker connotation to it as well that we don't typically think of. So, like, following the whole theme of rebirth and the year kind of being reborn and the year being new and the goddess being in her maiden form, anytime you have transformation, anytime you have rebirth, that can be painful. I mean, just ask any mother and she'll tell you how terrible childbirth can be. So birthing a new phase into your life is, or, experiencing rebirth and transformation within yourself is oftentimes not without its darker side, is oftentimes not without pain, is oftentimes not without sorrow and death. And, we experience that death and that dying process from Samhain and even over Yule. And, stuff has to die in order for things to be reborn. You have to leave certain things behind or let go of certain people or situations or events in order to move forward. I mean, even just like mushrooms, right? Like fungus, like growing from decomposing matter. Like, it took something to die in order for that to grow. And I think that that's another part of Ostara that oftentimes gets overlooked, is that spring is a pastel maiden. It definitely is a pastel maiden time of year. However, it also can be a painful and dark time of year as well, and kind of attuning with the energies of death and grieving, I think is very appropriate for this time of year, because the old year had to die in order for this year to be reborn, you know. And it's like, what habits are we leaving behind? What people, you know, are we taking with us, or what people are we leaving behind that we don't want to enter into the next phase of our life? And even just this month alone of March, with the moon that we had last night, the full worm moon, you know, and then the blue moon that we have and the black moon that we have. I mean, astrologically speaking, March is just insane this year. And then with the spring equinox following the whole theme of rebirth and revival and rejuvenation and resurrection, and, you know, and viewing that through a pagan lens and what that looks like to me, you know, there was a certain point definitely also for me where I didn't have as much of a connection to Ostara as I do now. I'm not going to say it's necessarily my favorite, but I really like it now, and I really like the themes of rebirth and revival, and, you know, the pastel maiden, and talking about blow-to-wed and what that looks like to me, and, you know, allowing, I mean, it's an exciting time of year, I think, because you're allowing yourself to kind of experience this newness, this youthfulness kind of all over again. And, you know, it's like the year is young. We have all these opportunities, you know, that lie ahead of us, that are waiting for us. And I think that's exciting. You know, and it's like, I don't know, this whole like multiple choice thing of life, right? It's like all of our choices shape our fate. And it sounds really cheesy, but the choices that you make today do shape your world tomorrow. So, I don't know. I mean, I know that for the spring equinox, I normally do a lot of crafting. And when I say crafting, I don't necessarily mean like the craft, like spell work. I mean like crafting as in like DIY crafting, witchy crafting. You know, not necessarily so much spell work type crafting, but, you know, using my hands and creating things and making things and visualizing something and manifesting it into the physical. Like the flower crowns that I do around this time of year. Also around Beltane. I mean, I think that flower crowns are really good for either holiday. But I love creating the flower crowns around this time of year, and I love how it connects me, you know, in a sense, to the aspect of goddess and to the maiden. And I love wearing them, and I love creating them for other people, and, you know, it's fun. And I loved making the flower face mask, the blow-to-wed mask that I showed in another video, and I love utilizing birdseed around this time of year in my spells, and, you know, throwing that off with intention and allowing the birds to take it. I love working with plant devas around this time of year, where, you know, you create a sigil for a specific spell and putting it at the bottom of a planter and allowing that plant to grow, and as it does, so does your magic. I love gardening. I love gardening. This time of year I start planning out my garden and what I'm going to grow and where I'm going to plant it and why I'm going to grow it and what I'm going to use for it. You know, I mean, it's exciting. I don't know. It's just, it's like the year is being reborn, and it's kind of like Imbolc through that process. Or I guess we should say at Yule, when the sun was reborn, you know, Imbolc is kind of, Yule is kind of like this resting period, and then Imbolc is kind of like this preparation period. And then I feel like Ostara is kind of like this, a climax, so to speak, where now the year has started, now the year is new, and, you know, let's get out, get motivated, and get to it, whatever that looks like to you. You know, this is where I really start working on my resolutions. Because at Samhain, the witch's new year, you know, our time to honor our ancestors, our beloved dead, our paths, where we come from, our kin. I create spiritual resolutions during that time of year. That's one of my practices. And I mean, I celebrate the Gregorian New Year on January 1st as well, but that's more for, I guess I would say, mundane kind of resolutions. But at Samhain, it's more for spiritual resolutions. And, you know, at Yule, you kind of rest, and then at Imbolc, you kind of prepare. But now come Ostara, it's time to really start working on those seeds, working on those resolutions, and really start getting to work. And that's one of the things I love about the Wheel of the Year, is that it is so in touch with agriculture and taking the whole aspect of agriculture of, you know, preparation and planting the seeds and tending to those ideas and thought forms that you plant, and then cultivating them and then harvesting them and celebrating in your harvest of the fruits of your labor. I mean, I love working manifestation magic through the wheel of the year. So Ostara is the time where I get giddy because it's like now it's time to start working on planting these seeds and working on my manifestation that I am going to see the fruits of come Lammas and Mabon, come the fall equinox, you know? And I think it's really cool too because as we are experiencing the spring equinox, the southern hemisphere is experiencing the fall equinox. Like that's dope how these two worlds are colliding in opposite directions. I mean, taking a pause and looking for a moment at how a pagan in the northern hemisphere versus southern hemisphere, you know, experiences these things. We're experiencing the same thing just on the opposite end of a coin, is how I view it. Mm. But yeah, that's about all I'm going to say on the spring equinox for right now. I've rambled on long enough. So I hope all of you guys are having a great day, and until next time, y'all, blessed be.